I welcome you to my class. And our today's topic is Arms and the Man. And it's a drama composed by George Bernard Shaw. And I am Dr. Elham Hossain, Associate Professor of English, Dhaka City College. Welcome you to my class. Arms and the Man is a comedy. But one thing that we must not forget that this comedy is not written in the format of Elizabethan comedies or the romantic comedies that we find produced by William Shakespeare. Bernard Shaw is a different kind of writer. And different kind, I just mean by this particular term, a special aspect of Bernard Shaw's temperament. That is, he is a serious kind of writer. And he is a Marxist, a socialist. He is a socially and politically conscious writer. And if you want to know him particularly, especially regarding his position as a writer, then I think one very example of his life is enough for you to understand him. You know, he was awarded the Nobel Prize. And while he was awarded the Nobel Prize, he refused the prize money. He accepted only the medal of the Nobel Prize just for the honor of the authority that awarded him with that very prize. But he did not receive the money. And you know that a Nobel Prize winner receives a very big amount of money. And George Bernard Shaw did not receive that money. So why? Because of his socialist attitude towards the society, because of his socialist position, because of his Marxist position. While a writer is a Marxist, he is very much critical about the class discrimination of the society. He is suspicious about the roles of the bourgeois politicians. He is also suspicious about the power structure of a state. So a true Marxist or a true socialist cannot receive the amount given to him by the bourgeois section of people. You know that the money, the prize money that was allocated for the Nobel Prize winner was the money that came from the profit of a huge deposit made by the father of the science of destruction, Alfred Nobel. Alfred Nobel invented dynamite, and he earned a lot of money by selling this weapon. And while he died, he left that huge amount of money, and he declared that the profit that would come from that very amount would be distributed among the persons who would contributed significantly to 6 fields of science, economy, literature, and peace, world peace. You know it very well. And George Bernard Shaw was suspicious about the role of Alfred Nobel. He was a great critic of the roles, of the behaviors, of the activities of the leaders of the world. And he was also suspicious about the hypocritical roles of the leaders of the world. Most probably, it is because of his contact with Marxist philosophy. Most probably, it is because of his contact with Fabian Society. You know that Fabian Society was a group of the Marxists. And George Bernard Shaw attended that very Fabian Society regularly, and he was influenced by Marxist philosophy. Okay. And what does Marxism say? Marxism is the political and economic theory, and it was propagated, or it was introduced by Karl Marx and his friend Friedrich Engels. And later, that very theory, that is Marxism, was developed by the followers of Karl Marx and Engels. And now today, Marxism has become a very powerful philosophy, a very pragmatic philosophy in the modern world. And this philosophy is now used by the socialists to interpret the economic activities and the distribution of economy in the society among different sections of people. And Karl Marx wanted equality. Karl Marx wanted that everybody in the society should be given his or her due wages. Suppose a worker works in a factory, he must be given his due wages. Or an officer works in a bank or in an office, he will also get his wages. So nobody will exploit the workers. But the capitalists, especially the employers, usually consider the employees as factory of laborers. They do not treat their employees as human beings. They treat them as factory of labor. So that very attitude makes them quite aggressive and desperate in their behavior, in their attitude towards those very people who work very tiresomely and who contribute immensely to the society, who turn the wheel of the society. But unfortunately, they are run over by those wheels of the society. So Marx did not want a society like this. He wanted a society where all the people's rights will be ensured and where all the people will enjoy all the amenities of the country, of the state. So Bernard Shaw was influenced by that very philosophy of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. And because of that very contact with Marxism, George Bernard Shaw interpreted human activities and human emotions from very practical point of view. And you know that love is a very common and popular form of human emotion. And we romanticize love affair all the time. And if you look back to Shakespearean comedies of love or romantic comedies, you will find that love lies in the nucleus of life. And it seems the lovers do not have anything else except making love. If you look back to As You Like It, and if you think of Orlando, you will find that Orlando seems to have nothing else except making love. Or if you think of Rosalind, you will find that she is mostly guided by this very passion, that is love. So love remains in the nucleus of their day-to-day activities. they are mostly guided by this impulse. But in modern age, if you look around in today's world, what will you find? Is love the nucleus of life? Don't you have anything else except making love? Love is one of the emotions. It is not the only emotion of life. Love is one of the emotions. So it should be handled from very practical point of view, or it should be handled very practically. So love is one of the passions of human life. It is not the only passion. Another important thing, if you think of marriage, should marriage be based on only this very particular emotion? From the modern perspective or from the practical perspective, I think your answer will be negative. Love is not the only thing that can bring a man and a woman together and that can bind a man and a woman together with the bond of the marriage. If you decide to marry a man, at first you have to decide his social, political, economic status in the society, in the arena where he lives. Suppose only for love, you marry a beggarly person. You marry a beggarly person. Then what will happen? Then, because of poverty, at one point of your conjugal life, you will find that your conjugal life or your marriage is broken off. Your marriage is broken off. Or suppose you are engaged with a man to marry him. And if you find suddenly that he is not economically uh, solvent, he is not morally fit, he is not socially fit, then what will you do? You will break off the engagement. And I think that would be wise for you. So only love cannot make a man fit, cannot make a man survive in the society. Okay, in the eyes of a romantic writer, love is the only passion that can ensure peace and happiness, that can ensure marriage bond between two persons. But in the eyes of a socialist, in the eyes of a Marxist, marriage is nothing but a social contract. He will just make a contract with a man and live together. And that very man, according to the conditions of the contract, will ensure your necessities. You have the necessity of food, you have the necessity of Medicare, you have the necessity of social security, you have the necessity of financial security. So that very man, according to the conditions of that very contract, will ensure all these things for you. That is called marriage. And this is the difference between a romantic and an anti-romantic. A romantic does not think of the realities that determine your relationship. He only concentrates on this particular impulse, that is love. On the other hand, an anti-romantic thinks of the social realities which formulate, which encapsulate, or which shapes the relationship. So an anti-romantic writer is not antagonistic to love. You must not misunderstand him. If you are anti-romantic, it does not mean that you are against love. It means that you are in favor of love only with consideration of other realities of the society. That is called anti-romantic attitude. So anti-romantic does never mean anti-love. So you must not make this mistake. Suppose you are making love with a man, you are not mad at all. You are not ignorant at all. You have to be knowledgeable. You have to think of the man's status in the society. You have to think of the man's economic status in the society. You have to think of the man's moral status in the society. So after considering all these and other things, you can make love with him. So love making is not prohibited. So Bernard Shaw does not discourage love making. You must not call him a villain who stands between a lover and a beloved. Bernard Shaw is not against love making, but Bernard Shaw says that, Bernard Shaw proclaims that love is to be made with your political consciousness, with your economic consciousness, with your social consciousness. So for that very particular attitude, we call Bernard Shaw an anti-romantic dramatist. And this drama, Arms and a Man, is an anti-romantic comedy. So the particular thing that I like to remind you again is that Bernard Shaw is not anti-love. Bernard Shaw is against the utopian attitude towards love. Okay, if you are forgetful about the realities of the society, then you have every possible chance of being a utopian. A utopian is ignorant of the realities of life. Okay, so Bernard Shaw is not a utopian, he's a realist. And if you think of Bernard Shaw's ideological location, then I think you can easily understand him, and you will be able to avoid your chance of misunderstanding him. I have already told you that Bernard Shaw is a socialist. Now, what is socialism? For your sake, I have put here the definition of socialism. Socialism is a political and economic theory of social organization, which advocates that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the community as a whole. That is, socialism says that the economy of the country should be for all the people of the country, should be guided, should be participated by all the economic activities of the society should be participated by all the people of a country. And the profit that the state will make from different economic sectors should be distributed equally among the people. But we find in a capitalistic society, suppose you will find hospitals, very luxurious hospitals in capitalist countries, but the poor people do not have an access into those hospitals. Understand? You will find very luxurious schools, but the poor people cannot send their children to those schools. Those schools are only for the moneyed people. In a capitalist society, you will find some fashionable places, different picnic spots, or some tourist spots, and you will find that all those spots are crowded with the elites of the society. The poor people cannot have an access into those places. Actually, if you find the picture like this, you can call that very society undoubtedly a capitalist society. So capitalist society cannot ensure equal treatment of all the people. Suppose you are sick, or you feel sick and you need to go to a physician. You don't have access to a private hospital because that is very expensive. Only the moneyed people go there. And then from what particular place will you take medical treatment? You will go to the rural health clinic or a government hospital where you will find that the doctors are not available, the other amenities are not available, so you will not get sufficient treatment, and you will get only negligence, you will get only the reluctance of the people who are there appointed to serve you. Actually, this is called discrimination. In this way, the society is divided into different sections. One section enjoys all the opportunities of the society, and the other section does never enjoy those facilities. They live in poverty, they live in deprivation, they live in insecurity. They don't have financial security, they don't have political security. All these facilities go to a particular section of people. Actually, this is called social discrimination. And George Bernard Shaw was against such type of discrimination. For that reason, we call him a socialist writer. And his socialist ideology has been reflected in this drama, Arms and a Man. And I just like to mention a character of this drama who is influenced by socialist ideology. And that very character is Loka. You must have heard the name of this particular character of this drama, Loka. Loka is a character who is very much conscious of social equality. And Loka is a character who questions social discrimination. That is undoubtedly a very important aspect of Loka's character. And you know that towards the beginning, if you think of the story of this drama, you will find that Rana, the heroine of this text, is living in a utopia at the beginning. At the beginning of this drama, you will find that Rana is living in the utopia. She is very much ambitious about her marriage with Sergius. She also thinks that she also idealizes Sergius's character. But gradually, while she comes in contact with Blanche-Lee, she develops a socialist attitude. She develops consciousness. And ultimately, she comes out of the shell of utopia. That is called change, or that is called evolution. Actually, Bernard Shaw wants that the society should have that very consciousness. And while the whole society will develop this consciousness regarding its rights, regarding its status, regarding its security, then that very society will be a society where there will be no discrimination. Okay, and if you think of the marriage between Loka and Sergius, you can again come to this conclusion that Bernard Shaw wants that the social discrimination should be removed or deleted from the society. Sergius belongs to the upper class section of people, and Loka belongs to a lower class section of people. And towards the end of this drama, while we find the arrangement of marriage between Sergius and Loka, then we can easily come to the conclusion that this is an attempt of leveling, or this is an attempt of equalizing all the sections of the society. That is, the upper class and lower class. This class discrimination will not be in a society. The society will have an atmosphere which will ensure equal opportunities, equal rights, equal services for all the people. So marriage between Loka and Sergius makes us think like this. Another important example I like to say, at the end of this drama, we find that Blanchely's father is dead. Blanchely receives a telegram that his father is no more. Then he decides to go back to his country and take up all the responsibilities of his dead father. And he also wants to go back to his country for taking up all the inheritances. That is the property that he has inherited from his father. So he decides to go there. His father had several luxurious restaurants or hotels, and Blanchely inherits all those hotels. And Blanchely, while he was living, declared that he would appoint Nicola as manager. He would appoint Nicola in one of his hotels as a manager. So it is another attempt of making a compromise or bringing different sections of people together. So this is an attempt, and this is also a message that Bernard Shaw throws in this drama. So for that reason, from these two examples that I have already mentioned, we can affirm that it's a socialist drama. And Bernard Shaw's socialist ideology has been reflected here very powerfully through the activities of these characters. All right? And in the screen, you find another piece of information, a Fabianist. You know, Fabian Society was an organization in Britain, and it was a socialist organization. And Bernard Shaw was a member of this very society. I have given here some information. The Fabian Society is a British socialist organization whose purpose is to advance the principles of democratic socialism via gradualist and reformist effort in democracies rather than by revolutionary overthrow. So Fabian Society does not want to create any anarchy in a society. Fabianist society wants that there should be a change in the society, there should be equality among all the people, and that very desire. So Fabian Society is a socialist organization, and this socialist organization wants that there should be a revolution in the society. Revolution means change in the society. But this change should not come through anarchy, or this change should not come through violence. This change should come through a peaceful and gradual democratic process. A peaceful and gradual democratic process. That was the objective of Fabian Society, and Bernard Shaw was a member of the Fabian Society. Okay, now look at this screen. I have put here some information regarding the genre of this text. What kind of text is it? Arms and a Man. Arms and a Man is a drama, undoubtedly. Now, what is drama? We know it. Drama is the creation and representation of life in terms of theater. And drama is usually written in the form of dialogues. And you will find all these characteristics with this very particular text, and for that reason we call it a drama. Now, what kind of drama is it? This is an anti-romantic comedy. Now, what is anti-romantic comedy? Anti means against or opposite. In this case, it would be the opposite of or that which is against a romantic comedy. An anti-romantic comedy has to be humorous, and it must still have an element of romance. If it didn't, it would not be categorized as it is. So, that leaves two elements which change in an anti-romantic comedy. How love is thwarted and a happy ending. Though it is possible to have a comedic romantic journey without a happy ending, it is not done often, and the elements comprising how love is thwarted are of a specific nature. That is, in an anti-romantic comedy, love making is not done in a traditional way that we usually find in a romantic. Suppose if you think of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, you will find that Romeo falls in love with Juliet at first sight. And if you think of Shakespeare's As You Like It, Rosalind falls in love with Orlando at first sight. They do not question about their status, about their financial security, but they fall in love with each other at first sight. That is romantic approach. But if this love making is made from practical perspective, then we call it anti-romantic relationship. So anti-romantic relationship does never mean that hostile relationship. It means that relationship must have love or love affair. And the attitude to lovemaking should be determined by other social realities. That are the characteristics of an anti-romantic comedy. And you will find here this very thing reflected in Arms and a Man. Suppose Loka marries Sergius. She does not marry Nicola. Nicola is also ready to break off the engagement with Loka. So why? Because he thinks that if Loka marries a moneyed man like Sergius, and if she provides him with a big amount of money, then he will be able to go back to his own town and open a shop there, and that will change his fortune. So he is very practical. He is not sacrificing his career. He is not sacrificing his future in the altar of love. So love is not controlling him. Rather, he is controlling this very particular impulse. Similarly, you will find the same case with Blanchely and Rana. Rana, though initially idealizes Sergius, and she is an idealist at the beginning of this drama, but gradually, while she has got an opportunity to exchange her views with Blanchely, and you can recollect the first scene of this drama in the bedchamber of Rana. Blanchely says to Rana that out of 10 soldiers, 9 are born fools. So that very statement was a fatal blow on the idealized attitude of Rana towards a soldier. Rana has idealized Sergius. In her eyes, Sergius is a great hero who fights for his country, who is ready to sacrifice his life for his country. All these are ideals, or all these are idealisms of Rana. And Blanchely proves her false. Blanchely says that in a battlefield, chocolate is more important than a bullet. That is, the soldiers fight not for patriotism, not for country, but for their stomachs. Okay, as he is a hired soldier fights not for his country. A hired soldier fights for money because he is hired with money. So this very statement that Blanchely makes brings about change in Rana's attitude towards soldiery, towards bravery, towards patriotism. Understand? So this drama is an argumentative drama. Bernard Shaw puts discourse, and he also puts counter discourse, and he makes a dialogues. He arranges dialogues between this discourse and counter discourse. Discourse of romanticism, counter discourse of reality. And while we find dialogues between these two discourses, then a new idea comes out. What is that new idea? That very new idea is about anti-romantic relationship of man and woman. Okay. So Arms and a Man is an anti-romantic comedy. And now I like to make you acquainted with the major characters of this text. In this drama, we find Captain Blanchely is a protagonist of this text. Then Rana Petkoff, the heroine of this text, and she is the daughter of Catherine Petkoff and Major Paul Petkoff. Catherine Petkoff is Rana's mother, and she is the wife of Major Paul Petkoff. Major Paul Petkoff is an important army officer. He's a major. And Major Sergius Saranov is another army officer. And Major Paul Petkoff and Major Sergius Saranov, these two army officers, are presented with all the false idealism in this drama. Major Paul Petkoff is a major, but he is not well aware of the rules and regulations of the realities of an army. He does not know warfare, but he is holding an important position in the army. So this is quite sarcastic. And that very gap or lapse of his knowledge makes him a sarcastic or comic character. The similar thing we find with Major Sergius. Sergius Saranov is a major. He is holding a very important position in the army, but he does not know warfare. He does not know how to plan a battle or how to place the soldiers in proper positions. So that is also a very sarcastic element of his character. Then Nicola is a manservant in the household of Major Paul Petkoff. And Loka is a maidservant in the same household. And we will find a character of soldier. This very soldier appears in the first scene of this drama, especially while Blanchely hides himself in the bedchamber of Rana. A soldier knocks at the door and he is allowed in the room of Rana, and he makes a search for a man, whether a fugitive is hiding there or not, and ultimately he finds nothing and nobody. He goes away. Actually, because of Rana's trickery, Blanchely's life was saved. So all these characters we find in this drama. And now come to the summary of the play. You find a very eye-catching picture. We find here Rana, we find here also Blanchely, and Loka is staring at them. Summary of the play. Arms and a Man takes place during the 1885 Serbo-Bulgarian War. Rana Petkov, a wealthy young woman with a taste for melodrama, is engaged to Sergius Serna, a dashing major in the Bulgarian army. On the night of her fiancé's triumph on the battlefield, a soldier in the Serbian army, a Swiss professional with no national interest, bursts into her bedroom and begs her to hide him so that he will not be killed. Actually, this is the summary of the first scene. And some important words are to be marked here. Suppose Trump on the battlefield. You know that on that very particular night, the Bulgarian soldiers won victory over the Serbian soldiers. And Sergius was on the front line. He was leading the soldiers. And while that very news came to Rana, and Catherine Petkov told Rana that Sergius was the hero, then we find that both mother and daughter became very, very happy. And Rana started waiting for Sergius's return very impatiently. Okay, and we find another soldier here. Suppose another soldier, Blansley, who was a fugitive and he fled from the battlefield and he came to he stealthily entered into the room of Rana, and at gunpoint he compelled Rana to save his life, and Rana told a lie with the soldier who came to make a search in the room of Rana. So these characters are presented here with all their charms and with all their ideologies. And this is the beginning of this drama, and we find here at the outset of this drama. Then Rana complies, though she thinks the man a coward, especially when he tells her that he carries chocolates instead of pistol cartridges. Rana's mother, imperious social climber Catherine, helps her smuggle the soldier away, but not before Rana has lost a beat of her heart to this pathetic specimen. When the men folk return from war, Rana prepares to worship her victorious Sergius, until Captain Blansley, her chocolate cream soldier, appears to return a borrowed house coat and is invited to stay. And incidentally, to help with regimental transport by hospitable Major Petkov, meanwhile, noble Sergius, disgusted with the practical realities of war, is more interested in farting with Loka, the defiant housemaid, who scorns to have the soul of a servant. So it is very important. It's a very important point regarding the character of Loka. Loka is a maidservant, but she is defiant of the soul of a servant. That is called social consciousness. She is conscious about social discrimination. She is conscious about social deprivation. So that very consciousness is a consciousness of the socialist. Then, as the Petkov family, their servants and the soldier himself struggle to hold on to their secrets and preserve their ideals, they are forced to question their romantic notions about social class identity, war, and love. So just mark the last sentence. They are forced to question. It's very, very important. They are forced to question their romantic notions about social class, identity, war, and love. So this is called revolution, mental revolution. Ultimately, Rana receives this mental revolution. Loka also receives this mental revolution. Okay, their attitude towards love ultimately changes. Their attitude towards war ultimately changes. Their attitude towards social class ultimately changes. Actually, this is called socialist attitude towards our realities, towards our surroundings. So this drama is uh, about, or this drama is implementing or dramatizing the socialist ideal very powerfully through the activities of some characters. Okay, now what are the themes of this drama? Class discrimination. I have already told you that some people live in the bottom of the society. They are deprived of all the facilities, they are deprived of all the amenities of the state, and some other people fly high. Just look at this picture, it is very significant. Some people are flying high. Suppose some people, while fall sick, go to Singapore for medical treatment, and some other people go to the rural health clinic and they do not get sufficient medical treatment or sufficient attention. So why does this happen? It happens because of social discrimination, economic discrimination. Okay, then another thing, socialist view of life. I have already told you, and this very view is very powerfully implemented in the character of Loka. And then the theme of ignorance versus knowledge. Ignorance, if you think of the beginning of the drama,